Hello and welcome to another edition of Brilliant But Lazy, Victims and Villains Pop Culture Podcast. I'm Alan.
I'm Josh, and we are back from New York Comic Con, buddy.
Yeah, we are.
We spent all last week. I'm still kind of exhausted from it. I'm finally catching up on sleep. How you doing?
Me too. I luckily had an easy week at work this week, so I could kind of like take it easy and relax and recover.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was an exhausting weekend. But it was a blast. It's always fun. Thank you again for having me out. Sold some of your books, pre-sold some books. So
Yeah. I mean, as long as we don't get sick, it's a good time. And I didn't get
yeah,
sick this year, but New York Comic Con, there's a lot of work that goes into it. I go out there 2 days early to set up, and then each day is like, depending on when you get there, it's like a 10 plus hour day of just going and going, and adrenaline keeps you going. And then you come out of the con feeling good and you want to go out and do something. And then when you get home after 4 days of that, when you fly home, at least for me, it's just like you know, the altitude of being up in the air gravity starts weighing
yeah,
on you, and then the next 3 or 4 days you're just like, can I just sleep? So
yeah.
uh but yeah, New York was great. I Like you said, I sold some books. I had a pre-order for my new book, which was kind of a last second idea to do this like blood bag display, and I didn't know how people would react to it, but it seemed to go over well, and yeah, it was fun.
Yeah, if I was thinking about it, I would have had I have one of the blood bags left
Oh
over.
yeah.
If I thought about it, I would have had it here to show off. But no, it was
Yeah.
a lot of
Yeah.
fun. We were in the same spot as usual, a little bit more
Mhm.
condensed because they added a row for some reason.
Yeah.
Um,
I'm still happy with that spot though. Every
yeah,
year I'm like, should I change? Should I not? Um, I'm still happy with it. I think I'll keep it. Next year will be my 10th year, so I think I'll keep it for that year, and
oh
then
yeah,
we'll look at options after that. But yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
Uh, got to see a lot of people walking by the booth, including some celebrities. Uh, some of which we
Yeah,
some of which we wanted to talk to, other which we just let them walk by.
that's
Looking
right. It's
looking at you,
good for people watching.
looking at you, Mighty Morphin Red Ranger.
Yeah.
But
hmm
um, yeah, it was a lot of fun. Not a lot of news came out of New York Comic Con. A lot of celebrities showed up though. Um,
Oh yeah, it was packed with celebrities. Yeah.
the cast of Shrinking was there, and they announced the third season of the show. Like the
hmm
first day of I think that was like the first panel. Because I was not there for it, and I wanted to be. Um, James Gunn came out with the cast of Creature Commandos and showed off the trailer for that. The Russo brothers were there with Chris Pratt and Millie Bobby Brown showing off the trailer for their new thing.
hmm
Um, and then Marvel did some stuff. Um,
Yep. Yep.
they they had a surprise visit from Daredevil and Kingpin themselves. Charlie Cox and Vincent D'Onofrio showed up at a panel. They had the costumes from Daredevil Born Again on display not far from our table, which was pretty cool.
Right. But they had sheets over them in the early hours, so we couldn't
Yeah.
go get a picture before and
Yeah.
piss some random Marvel booth guy off, like we did in previous years.
Yeah. And I didn't realize they had the costumes for Agatha All Along on the back
Along the
side of the
backside.
booth. Yeah.
Yeah, I saw
Um,
that.
but Sony Marvel did some stuff. They had a panel.
hmm
They showed
hmm
off some footage from the Karate Kid, I guess, which is not
Yeah,
Marvel, but they threw it in with the Sony Marvel stuff. They showed Sony showed some.
Karate Kid, Craven, same thing, right?
It's weird to me that that Sony's Karate Kid movies have a better connected universe than the Sony Marvel stuff because they're bringing in Jackie Chan's mentor, like Miyagi from the Jaden Smith one, in with Ralph Macchio's Daniel.
Yeah.
So like they're crossing the streams there, but yet Sony Marvel can't like figure out what's connected and what's not. Um,
hmm
but neither of us went to the panel because we just didn't. But we thought they were going to premiere Venom: The Last Dance, and they didn't. But they did show some footage. The biggest thing that I saw from that panel is the reaction to the Kraven the Hunter footage, because they showed the first 7 minutes of the movie, and evidently it's insane how violent it is, and the crowd went wild.
Aaron Taylor Johnson was there. And yeah, I mean, I'm sure he's back. He's happy to be back in a comic book film after his untimely and quick death in Avengers. Was it Ultron?
Yeah.
And I'll see it. I'll see it. We got
Yeah.
a great Craven story in Spider-Man 2, the game, so I'll be interested to see if that carries over. I doubt it will, but Russell Crowe's in it. He's in this instead of a Gladiator, so I guess we'll see.
Yeah.
Guess we'll see which one's better. When is Craven coming out? It's got to be soon, right?
That's a good question.
They've delayed it a few times, so
That
is
is
it even this year?
I think it is this year. Let me look. Kraven the Hunter. December 13th.
Okay, so after Gladiator 2. Interesting. Okay, well,
Yeah.
we'll see. We'll see if it's any good.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was a good. I mean, a lot of people showed up. Well stocked, well packed con. I think the vendors there were great. There's a little bit of everything as we experienced. There's buttons, there's pins, there's porn stars, there's
Yeah.
T-shirts, there's everything. And I thought they did a good job of getting a variety of vendors there this year. In previous years, I've seen them fill the con floor with like 5, 6 of the same booth, spread throughout. And I didn't see that this year. It was condensed. It wasn't condensed in terms of space. They had the full Javits floor, but they did add rows this year. I think in COVID years they had spread rows out a bit and maybe
Yeah.
sacrificed some content. They're back on a full swing of that this year, and I even 9 years in explored parts of the Javits that I hadn't been to before in order to see some YouTubers that I found out were there. So yeah, I was very happy with this year. I had a good time outside the con as well. I saw Kate Mulgrew, Captain Janeway, play called The Beacon on
Yeah.
Tuesday night. I saw Robert Downey Jr. in a play called McNeil with Jan from The Office on Wednesday night, and then I saw Emmy Rossum in a play called Walden on Sunday night. And so those were fun ways to spend my evenings and relax after being involved with the con all day.
Oh yeah. I think this is the least amount of stuff I've brought back from a con. Like I only bought two big things on the floor. I bought a book that I got signed by one of the Impractical Jokers.
Hmm.
And I bought the Spider-Man 2 score on vinyl.
That's right, from the Milan
Yeah.
booth. Yeah.
Um,
The one thing I wish I would have bought, but I didn't have time to go stand in their line, was the new Thrilljoy booth, which is like I'm sure you saw their booth. There's in the back corner there, and they had their logo on a lot of bags. But Thrilljoy is like the new Funko, and it's
Okay.
actually created by one of the founders of Funko that just didn't transfer over to Mondo when Mondo bought it out.
okay.
So this was like their debut, and they had some pretty snazzy stuff over there. It's kind of like Funko, but it's a bigger box, and it looks really nice. And I wish I would have gotten one of those. But likewise, I heard about some really fun after parties that were kind of not very advertised on purpose that I'm gonna try to get into next year. Like a
Yeah.
Scholastic had one, and Audible had one, and these are. I love Scholastic, so I'm gonna try to get on that list next year.
There
But
you go.
yeah, but it
Yeah.
was fun hanging out with you, and it's always good to have good company at the booth, and
Oh yeah.
there's a lot of people, but it's sometimes you just need someone you know to
Yeah.
chat up the day with.
And I made my sales quota for each day. Like you didn't set a quota for me. I set a quota for myself. It's like as long as I make one sale a day, and
Oh, wow,
I
that's
at
a great
least made
quota.
that. I at
Man.
least made
Yeah.
that. Some days it was tough. Some days it was tough. But there was something funny that happened at the booth. We were both standing there, and we could hear everything going on at the Marvel booth. Not well, but we could hear enough of like the cheering, and they had like trailers playing all weekend. And for
Yeah.
the first 2 days, the vendor behind us wasn't there, so we were able to just like peek behind the curtain and like I could watch the screen.
Right.
At one point, we're standing there, and we hear the announcer just be like, "Ladies and gentlemen, Tom Hardy," and I look at you and I'm like, "Tom Hardy is at the Marvel stand?" So I walk over, and I'm far enough away that I can't see closely, and they don't have who's on stage on the screen. So I just see two
Yeah.
Venom cosplayers. I was like, oh, it was just a joke. They're saying that he looks like these actually look like Venom. No, it was actually Tom Hardy with the cosplayers, like, because he
Of
was there
course.
promoting what we're talking about today, Venom, The Last Dance,
Yes.
which had its premiere Monday after New York Comic Con.
Right after we left.
Yeah,
Yeah.
after we left. Sony has premiered movies at New York Comic Con before. They did it with Ghostbusters Afterlife. So I was kind of hoping that they would premiere this at Comic Con, but they didn't. Cowards. Um,
Yeah. Yeah.
but
No joke. Maybe they
this,
didn't feel as strongly as they did with Ghostbusters.
yeah,
Who knows?
yeah. But this is the third entry into the Venom series of films, starring Tom
Or
Hardy.
maybe last.
Maybe
not.
last.
We'll see.
Starring Tom Hardy, Chiwetel Ejiofor, and Juno Temple.
Mm-hmm.
We've talked about the other two Venom films, correct?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay. Just briefly, what are your thoughts of the Venom films going in? What were your thoughts going into this one? Like, what did you think of Venom 1 and 2, briefly?
I don't want to sound like a purist an asshole or whatever, but I just I they just haven't really been for me. I
Mm-hmm.
think you know I know that in the comics, the Lethal Protector is a thing, and Venom becomes this anti-hero and is this is reinvents itself. And it's not the first time we've seen that. We've got a movie coming out called The Thunderbolts, which is a group of bad guys going up against a bigger bad guy, and you're rooting for one of them.
Mm-hmm.
I think the fun thing about that concept is you see a bad guy having to do a good guy thing, and then you root for him. But they were a bad guy first. And so when Venom comes out, skips the whole Spider-Man saga, Black Suit saga, all of that stuff, skips the whole villain side and goes straight into being a good guy or an anti-hero, whatever you want to call it, I feel like it loses depth. And so I got into, wow, they made him look good. I mean, Venom, even in the first one, looks a lot better than the Venom we got in Spider-Man 3. And I like Tom Hardy. I certainly thought he was good fit, better than Topher Grace. But I didn't like the concept of who Eddie was in this, the reporter angle, the podcaster angle, or whatever. And I just thought the first one was sloppy. And then when they teased Carnage in the second one with Woody Harrelson, I was like, okay, you guys want to do these R-rated movies? Let's go hard. Carnage is can get really crazy and really bloody and really serial killery in the comics, and we live in a world where people love serial killer podcasts and serial killer shows and stuff like that. So why not lean into that? And then Let There Be Carnage, the second Venom movie, was just a mess, and it felt like Transformers at times when you couldn't see what was going on. It lacked plot, it lacked edge, and it was just boring, and uh, I was disappointed in it. So, I'm not gonna lie. I've been disappointed in the Venom movies going into this, and while the trailers look good for this, I was cautious. I was cautious. Well, the trailers did look good for this, so I was going into this cautiously optimistic, knowing that I didn't really care for the first two films. What about you?
Yeah, the Venom films are the best of the Sony Marvel stuff that we've gotten so far. That's
Oh,
like outside the MCU.
it's a low bar
It's a
though.
very low
It's a
bar,
low bar.
but they're not the best films. But I find them fun. I like the back and forth between Eddie and Venom, because it just makes me laugh. Like it is ridiculous, and I see how bad. Like these films are not great. But there are moments in them that just make me laugh every time I see them. Like Venom 2, like in Let There Be Carnage, when uh, Woody Harrelson's like pleading for his life, and Venom's like, "Fuck this guy," and like bites his head off. Like that still makes me laugh. Like there are still moments in here that are fun for me,
Mm-hmm.
and I can enjoy that. With knowing that these are not the best films, I think that they did a disservice to the symbiote story by ignoring the Spider-Man origins. And like I said this on the Joker episode. I'm burnout on standalone villain stories without the hero. Like I want to see the Joker with Batman. I want to see Venom and Spider-Man properly, because we haven't seen that properly
I want to
on
see
the big
villains
screen.
be villains, man.
Yeah.
I want to see villains be villains.
Um,
I'm burnt out on that. And we were
yeah.
just talking about Craven. Doesn't look like a villain in that movie either.
No.
Like,
Um,
yeah.
but I went into this hopeful. The trailers look good from every time I saw them, because they've just been playing this in front of everything over the last
Right.
few months. And
Andy Serkis as Noel. I wanted, I was like, I
yeah,
like Andy Serkis, and I like when he does mocap stuff. So, and I haven't read the comics that Noel is in, but I heard it gets pretty crazy.
Andy Serkis.
So
Andy Serkis, like his connection to all these movies is so bizarre to me, because he directed Let There Be Carnage.
right,
Um,
right.
and like the fact that they got him back, that he's willing to come back. Like I don't know if he like just loves this universe and these characters or what, but like him coming back as Noel was kind of cool. Um,
Yeah, well, I got some words on that, but
yeah,
I mean, they were teasing up a new big bad, and they were holding him back from the trailers, but they were showing you just enough, and I was like, all right, I'll give this a shot. I mean,
yeah,
whether I believed the Last Dance is going to be the last movie or not, who knows? But I was like, the marketing's good. Let's see. Let's
yeah.
see.
Um, yeah. How packed was your theater when you saw this?
Not.
Not okay. Yeah, mine wasn't either. I went opening night.
We both went on Thursday night.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, this this falls into the same category as the other two Venom movies. Like, I had fun with it. There are moments in here that I enjoyed. It's not the best film. I think it's the best film out of this franchise, out of this trilogy. I think this is the strongest, like story wise. Like, um, but there are things that I like. I think I have a lot of questions about this, but I overall kind of enjoyed this film. It's definitely not the best. And there are things that I would have done differently if it was my film. But I thought this was probably the best Venom movie that we've gotten out of the three.
I think if I had to compare, I think Venom One is probably the best one,
Okay.
and the most story. I thought this had the least story of the trilogy. I thought it was a bait and switch with the villain. I thought it was it felt like a setup film, and and for some stupid reason that they kind of say, but it doesn't really make sense. The majority of Venom was just, the little head on the shoulder type thing, and not a lot of actual Venom. They say why. It doesn't really make sense why. But I was like, I mean, okay, I guess that's a mechanism for you not to go into full Venom mode and for Tom Hardy to get more screen time. But it didn't really make a lot of sense to me. And then the
Yeah.
payoff was lackluster. There was some cool stuff in here. At times, it felt like that Predator movie. Whatever, the Predator, the one that Shane Black
Okay.
directed.
Hmm.
It felt like that at times with the Area 55 base. Um, we got some more symbiotes. We got a lot of stuff thrown into this movie, but then there wasn't enough story to string it all together. And then I was like, and that's it. I thought the payoff was not worthy of the setup, but or was just not there to begin with. I didn't walk out of it pissed, but I was just like, man, imagine if this is the last one. It's disappointing,
Yeah.
and also, I can't help but think of all of the stuff that we've been hearing, about Spider-Man 4 and how Tom Holland has creative control over that, and how they're really working on where to go with that character. I again felt sad for the MCU Spider-Man because I don't think we'll ever get a Venom in that scenario. Um, Unless we distance ourselves from this trilogy. But whatever, it's not that they'll have big shoes to fill, but it's a crazy big obstacle to overcome a trilogy of lackluster films that had a character that looked great. I mean,
Hmm.
Venom does look great. The visuals, they got him, but they've painted Venom to be this this comedic character to a point where I don't know that we'll ever get a villain Venom again, you know?
Yeah. Um.
I mean, imagine if they did this to any other person. We got the Joker, and while I didn't care for the Joker films, they didn't paint him as a person that was just so funny or so good or so starkly different to a Joker that we couldn't see Joker being a villain again.
Yeah.
Imagine if they did that with any other significant villain from the other shows. It would just be detrimental to the franchise. So
Yeah.
this is, Venom is pretty big in the Spider-Man lore. Yeah, I don't know how they would ever do another one.
Yeah. I mean, and that's kind of what Sony's thing is right now. They're just butchering the villains from Spider-Man and doing their own thing with them and kind of like starting from
Because they
scratch
can. Yeah,
because they
because they
can.
can't do the Spider-Man thing unless they. I don't even know that they have the ability to do things with Tobey Maguire or Andrew Garfield without the MCU approval. I don't
Yeah.
know. I don't know what the guardrails are for that, but it
I
seems
I
like they can't touch it.
I don't know either. Um. There were rumors that Andrew Garfield was going to show up in this.
Yeah,
Um.
I think that was a lot of people just hoping for
Yeah.
better things
I
in a
mean, I was
movie.
hoping for that. So.
Same.
But there were also hints in the trailers of something that we'll talk about then because I'm still confused on casting for some of these roles. Um, but yeah, so do we want to give our rating of this before we get into spoilers?
Yeah, sure. And remind everybody what our rating
Yes.
is again and
So
how we do that.
here on Brilliant but Lazy, we like to rate things brilliant or lazy, um,
Hmm.
and sometimes it's somewhere in between. Um, I'm gonna give this a late. See, I gave it 3 stars on Letterboxd, so I'm gonna fall under the brilliant but a very strong but. Brilliant but like I enjoyed this film. I had fun with it. I have a lot of questions like I always do from Sony films, but I'm gonna give it a brilliant but. There I have issues.
Okay. The way I view us as a 4-star system. So 4 stars would be brilliant, 3 stars would be brilliant, but 2 stars would be lazy, but and 1 star would be lazy. So I would give this lazy butt.
Okay.
I think story wise it's lazy, villain wise it's lazy, as a trilogy ender it's lazy, and as a comic book film it's lazy. But there are some visuals in here that at times, while at times it looks like Transformers chaos, other times it does look pretty clean, and so I'll give it
Yeah.
a brilliant or lazy butt.
Yeah. So on that note, we're gonna dive into spoilers. Starting with, I want to talk about the opening scene of this movie,
Hmm.
with Tom Hardy and Venom in the MCU, because this film opens in the MCU when
Yes,
he's
it's an extension of the scene at the end of what was it, No Way Home?
yeah, and a kind of a rewrite, right? Because I
Yeah,
swear in No Way Home he's like, I should go check out the Spider-Man guy. Um, and then they just erased that line completely. And said, oh, I should go to New York and try to get my job back, like, or something like that. And
and
then
then
he,
part of Venom is left in the MCU
yes,
in the No Way Home one, and that
yeah,
doesn't happen here. Yeah,
it reminded me a lot of Evil Dead 2, where like, oh, we need to recap where we left off, but we're gonna change it
sure.
a bit.
Yep.
So he they leave Danny Rojas in the MCU and they show up to Danny Rojas in the Sony universe,
Hmm.
um, and like wreck his bar, and um, they leave a bit of the symbiote behind there, and Danny Rojas gets arrested. Um, what do you think of that rewrite of like dropping the Spider-Man element immediately from the get-go?
I mean, okay. I mean,
Yeah,
it just it almost felt like they got spanked or something. I don't
yeah,
know, like or they really like twisted Kevin Feige's hand to get at the end of No Way Home, but the reverse of that or the agreement was that they'd have to rewrite it as soon as they came out
yeah.
with the other one or never reference it again. So, I don't
I
know. It felt odd.
I wonder if they had hopes of getting a Spider-Man into the third one, and then something happened and they had to change it.
Yeah. Maybe they
Because if
thought they could force their hand or something, but yeah.
maybe, and honestly, maybe it's Tom Holland took a break from acting, so maybe they wanted him back, but he was on hiatus, so they couldn't get him back for it, so they had to
Hmm.
do a rewrite. If that's it, okay, but like, it just felt like a cop out, like because you one of the perks of the post credit scenes is you're setting something up for later. Like, don't tease something and then be like, no, wait, no, we're gonna redact that. We're gonna redo that and change it. Because that's just another one of the Phase 4 and 5 MCU post credit scenes that's just never gonna pay off.
Yeah.
Right up there with Harry Styles. So, uh,
Yeah. Speaking of post credit scenes, this movie, on top of that bar rewrite scene, started with what would normally be a post credit scene,
yeah,
um, reminiscent of Thanos showing up in the post credit scene of like Avengers. You know,
yeah,
imagine if Avengers had started with the scene with Thanos, and then that was all you got of Thanos.
yeah,
That's pretty much what happens here. They show the same footage that you see in the trailers of Andy Serkis sitting in mocap with his head down as Noel, maybe ashamed of the product that he had made in Venom 2, just kind of sitting with his head down and talking about how he's been imprisoned there and how he needs the codex and how he's gonna, you know, his minions can go wherever they want with their own little Doctor Strange light circles, but he can't because he's whatever, chained, trapped, imprisoned to his chair,
yeah,
and that's it. Like, it makes it feel like, oh, this is gonna be the big bad at the end of the movie. Nope, never leaves that chair. We don't get more of that. That is what you see of the big bad in the trailer is all you see of the big bad in the film, and I thought that was a weird choice maybe they were really setting up for, oh shit, people are gonna want a Noel movie. This is gonna be our Thanos, I don't, maybe Craven mentions Noel. Maybe Madam Web was supposed to mention Noel. Maybe they were gonna have their own little, Sony Universe big bad finale movie with Noel. But if that's what they're going for, man, they really dropped the ball with this because I was just like, that's it.
Yeah. I wish the opening scene had not shown as much. Like, it would have worked better with just the voiceover, because that is how the Avengers opens. It's like Thanos's minion talking about the Tesseract and Loki and sending him off to Earth, and then
But then you see Thanos at the end.
yeah, you see Thanos at the
and
end.
You're like, oh shit, this is what's coming.
Like, if you had just shown the Xeno thing, what were they called? Xenomorphs?
I don't know.
No, not xenomorphs.
It's not xenomorphs. Giant cockroach dogs.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was Xeno was in the title.
Yeah.
Or was in the name.
Where was it? Xenophages.
Okay.
Yeah. The Venom dogs. We'll just call them that.
Yeah.
Like, if you just seen them, like, heard the voiceover and seen them jumping through these portals to find this codex, which just made me like, anytime you said the word codex, I just immediately went to Man of Steel.
Yeah.
So
they're just words. They're just words being thrown and shoved together. Xenophage.
Yeah.
Okay, man. For the codex, it's just words at this point that they don't carry any meaning. And then you see all these dogs go through their smoke circle portal things, and so that's the plot, is that Noel made all the symbiotes. Those are his children, and then somehow, I don't know, the symbiotes or somebody else or whatever, his planet was invaded and he got locked to his throne. And he can still have his dogs do his bidding, but he can't leave the throne without this codex.
Yeah.
And the codex can only be found in a symbiote that dies and is reborn with whatever person or entity their host. So the idea is that Venom and Eddie died in the first movie, and now they contain a codex. And so Noel is sending his creatures out into the universe to find one, and one just happens to come to Earth and find that Venom and Eddie is there. So, by the way, this movie is the third Venom movie, and all three Venom movies has taken place over 1 year.
Mm-hmm.
So, I guess that's because that was one of my complaints with the last film. I was like, Eddie still isn't used to this. I'm getting tired of clumsy Eddie, and we got more of that in this one. The opening margarita scene, and I guess if this has all been 1 year, but is that compelling anymore? At what point are you like, I want to see peak Eddie Venom?
Yeah.
You get tired of, oh, he's just the scared screaming passenger, and maybe they wrote in the 1 year thing to be like, but that's what everybody loves, so we have to give their a story reason why he's why they're like this. But I was just like, okay, I guess.
Yeah, it's I guess it makes sense to someone. The year thing didn't really bug me that much.
Yeah.
Like, it makes sense that this picks up like right after Venom 2.
Yeah.
Like, but what was I going to say? So Danny Rojas gets arrested, and then we don't see him the rest of the movie. They kind of recreate.
Why did he get arrested? Why?
Because he saw Venom. That's why.
Okay.
Like, he saw the symbiote, so they arrested him and took the little bit of the symbiote that was left behind. One thing I
So a
will say.
random bartender in Mexico gets arrested by
So,
government.
but
Go
before I
ahead, sorry.
shit on this movie some more, I want to say something that I love about this movie, which is the
Okay.
soundtrack. I love the soundtrack to this movie
Mm,
because it has a little bit of everything. You got David
it
Bowie
does.
in there, Queen, ABBA, which I was not expecting. Um, I really enjoyed the soundtrack of this.
Hmm.
What I don't enjoy is taking actors who have previously played Marvel characters and casting them as new Marvel characters.
Mm.
First of
Hmm.
which being Chiwetel Ejiofor,
Hmm.
who played Baron Mordo in the Doctor Strange films. He's coming
Hmm.
over to do this Sony Marvel project, not playing Baron Mordo, which is fine. But it was kind of jarring seeing him in this, knowing him as Mordo.
Hmm.
Not as jarring. Did you have thoughts on him?
No, go
Okay.
ahead. Continue.
Not as jarring as Reeves Ifans as who played Dr. Kirk Connors in The Amazing Spider-Man and Spider-Man No Way Home as what was his name? Martin.
I don't know. Hippie dad. Yeah.
Yeah, as just a guy, just a hippie.
Hmm.
Um, they put him in the trailer to make like to tease you, like, oh hey, Dr. Connors might be in this. Like, this is the actor who played Dr. Connors. It's like if they put Andrew Garfield in the trailer for this, and like, oh, he's not playing Peter Parker, he's playing Steve. Like,
And some people might be like, Alan, why did you even let your brain go there? This is a different movie. This is a different time. This is years later. But it is not a stretch when
it's not.
we've had all of this what am I trying to say, multiverse stuff going on. It's a Sony villain in a Sony movie that's both Spider-Man adjacent. It's not, and it's almost like our brains have been rotted to a point where we're just like, well, the multiverse exists, so we can't rule out anything, you know. And even though it would be stupid for Dr. Connors to be in this film, we're like, well, but it's the multiverse, so anything can happen, you know.
Yeah,
So, and same with Ejiofor, you know, Baron Moto was a character that I think people wanted more of, and we never got. And I mean, he was fine in this. His character reminded me of the general or the colonel or whatever from Man of Steel. You know, it wasn't a
yeah,
huge role, but you just had that military guy. But this
yeah.
his character also reminded me of what was I trying to say? The and I'm not. It's not because he's black, but the same character in Predators, the Predator, with the underground, you know, area 51, 55, whatever lab looking into the alien stuff. It just seemed like, you know, there's always a you know, he's super mad, he's super strict, and he's super not in control, and then shit goes bad in the lab, and, you know, uh, you don't really care for what he thinks. And it was just
Yeah.
like a copy paste character from other movies. So I didn't really care for, you know, I thought, and I guess Rex Strickland is the character in the comics, but they only
He
took the
is.
name. Like, this isn't like a character, same character, but just
Yeah,
odd. If you're gonna bring him into the movie, give him something more to do. I guess I don't know. You
exactly.
gave Juno Temple's character this crazy backstory that didn't really amount to much, but
It
you
it
had.
it didn't. But and I like after seeing Morbius, I was really expecting them to not address her arm being disabled because they had a whole character in Morbius who had a robotic arm and you only see it for like 2 frames. Uh,
Yep. Yep.
But I think they learned the lessons from that, and at least like, okay, we're gonna flesh this out a little bit. Which, to their credit, I I appreciated that because I really thought they were setting her up to be a villain, like, and then they didn't, which was nice. But real quick before we move on from the crossing over of casting stuff, all these Spider-Man films are produced by the same guy, Avi Arad. So like he's the one signing the checks at the end of the day. Like,
Yeah,
oh,
he knows.
he knows. So now at a certain point, he's just messing with us. Along with Amy Pascal, because she's in charge of all this too. So,
Yeah, they know what they're doing.
yeah, they know what they're doing. I thought Juno Temple was good in this. It's weird. I'm used to her on Ted Lasso, so it was weird seeing her with an American accent.
Yeah, we had a few Ted Lasso folks in this movie.
Can always go with more Ted Lasso folks.
More Ted Lasso. Yeah, so she's this Dr. Payne who, she lost her brother on a beach when he got killed by lightning, and she got disfigured, and he always wanted to be an astronaut, and so her life is dedicated to Area 55, where they're studying aliens, and they've collected symbiotes. An asteroid with multiple Venoms, different colors, symbiotes came to the world, and they just happened to be there and captured them all. So they've got, 5 or 6 symbiotes underground. They brought Stephen Graham's character, who everyone thought died at the end of the second one. They brought him back, and they gave him a new symbiote. So he's a green one now, I guess. And so while they're there, Tom Hardy's Eddie is being framed for the stuff that happened in part 2. So his idea is to try to get from Mexico to New York, because nobody will recognize him in New York.
Yeah.
And blackmail a judge to clear his name. So he's gonna walk to New. Okay. So they're flying to New York, and one of the dogs show up, and they kill the dog, or they don't kill the dog, but they get the dog away from him, and then Venom immediately is like, I gotta turn off. Yeah. And this is where we get the crux of this. Apparently, when Venom is in full mode with Eddie, the cortex can be seen by these dogs if he's in full mode. But if he's in full mode with anything else, like a horse or a frog or whatever, or a fish, the cortex can't be seen. So he can be in full horse mode, which is a giant thing bigger than Eddie, but because he's not in full mode with his host that he died with, the cortex can't be seen. So that's the caveat, is that we're not going to see as much Venom through most of the film until, I guess, they're willing to risk it for a dance scene. But that's why we don't get as much Venom in a good portion of the film, because he's trying to hide or something.
Yeah, I accept that excuse for not having Venom in it as much. I didn't really have an issue with that, like, as much. Like, there are so many other symbiotes in this. Is like, looking at it from a production standpoint, it's like, oh, we have to save money, so we can do all of these. So let's not put Venom in it as much. But we got so many Venom animals in this that it was kind of worth the trade-off for me. That, okay, we don't get Venom proper, but here's Venom Horse. Which a friend of mine was saying that this movie should just be called Venom Horse, and then I'd go see it. But we had so many, like, I love the Venom Horse sequence because I was not expecting that to be set to Queen, which just worked perfectly. But we got Venom Fish, we got Venom Frog. And it was weird because as we're getting all of these different animals, like, I just was thinking about it in the movie because I got bored at one point. I was like, what other animals would be cool as a Venom? And I was like, Venom kind of looks like an orca, like Venomized Orca would be pretty cool. And then in the post-credit scene, like in the credits, you get that because they just do like a montage of different Venom animals.
Yeah.
Like, oh, that's exactly what I pictured that looking like. So,
Like they were reading your mind, and we got you in the credits.
Yeah.
So we got all these other symbiotes, which you're just like thinking, oh, they're gonna team up. We're gonna get like the Power Rangers of symbiotes versus the big bad at the end. Because the dog, you think that they kill the dog, but the dog is able to regenerate, and apparently is able to call their dogs. So I guess once the dog realized that the Codex was on Earth, why didn't he just call all the other dogs then? Because of plot. But instead,
Yeah.
one dog chases them throughout the whole film and is unkillable. And then they get all these other symbiotes to come out at the end, and all the symbiotes are having a hard time with this one dog. And then and a lot of them die immediately, and you're just like, oh wow, okay, bye green one, bye purple one, bye whatever. They just keep on dying.
Yeah.
And then more dogs get called in, and suddenly those dogs are easier to handle. But I was just like, at some point towards in the third act, I'm like, oh, this is just gonna be a Venom dog. This is why I talked about the Transformers thing, because it got to the point where you're just like, there's so much happening on screen.
Yeah.
I think that's the good guy. I think that's the bad. I think someone just died. I can't really tell. We'll wait till they separate and stand still for a moment for me to be able to see what's going on.
Yeah. The third act is a bit of a mess, like just visually. Because
that's all it is. It's a symbiote versus dog fight at the end.
Yeah, it's like, hey, might be the last Venom movie we get to do for a while, so let's just throw everything in here. Just hand me that box of crayons. I'm gonna take a few out, and we're gonna make a symbiote of that color and throw it in here. And some of them are based on comics. I got a list here. It's you got Lasher, who was the green colored one, Phage, which was the golden symbiote. They created the two-headed one. You get Gino Temple getting a speedster symbiote because evidently that's a thing.
Because in her, like the lightning was still in her body, and then that like combined with the venom or something.
I think like the venom itself, the symbiote itself had like a lightning thing because it was like kind of like shooting something off in the vial. But
that was all she needed too, was the little vial, where all the other ones had like the full mass. She just had a little vial, but that was able to turn her into a full Venom, I guess.
Yeah.
But that's also felt like Transformers when you got some of the later movies when they'd show the opening sequence. Oh, hey, there's whatchamacallit. Oh, they died. Okay. Yeah. Oh, hey, okay, so they're not actually going to be in the film. They're just going to be in this, fight scene and
yeah. This is a road trip movie with Venom and Eddie trying to get to New York.
He never makes his destiny. Well, I guess he does at the very end.
He does. But the road trip element for me, one, is insane because you're not going to walk from Mexico or New Mexico when they fall off the plane to New York. That's just no. But then you get sidetracked with the family, and you get to see like Eddie regretting some of the life choices he made, and they never say her name, but like Michelle Williams' character is not in this movie at all, and not mentioned at all.
No, not at all. Also, Eddie, I get it. I guess he's been through a year's worth of this, but he was an interview personality in the first film. So the fact that he can't be normal around regular people, I don't know if that's just PTSD from all the Venom stuff, but like, I was like, you were a character at one point that could be around people. You were dating somebody. You weren't always like this. So even when Venom are on like an even plane, you can't act like you're a normal person in a van with a family that's giving you a ride. Like it just felt weird.
I still think that there's a subplot cut out of the first film where Eddie was like an addict at one point, like
Mm.
when it got into drugs or something, because there are things about his character in that film that just don't make any sense, and I think it kind of carries on into this film with that.
Yeah,
Um, I
I think that
didn't
was too much.
I didn't hate the stuff with the family as much as I thought I would. Because as soon as they introduced them, I was like, "Oh, this is that's gonna be his ride to Vegas," and it's like I'm not looking forward to that. But then they sang David Bowie, and all was better. Um,
They're able to just drive up to Area 51.
yeah,
Like,
as
I
you
don't
do.
care. I don't care if they're tearing it down or not. You can't get,
Yeah,
within miles of Area 51, right? Area 51 exists,
yeah,
whether or not there's aliens there is to say. But I knew people that worked on Area 51, and they had to get, depending on where they were based out of, they had to fly into 51 with planes that had the windows shaded and everything. Like there's still a massive amount of security around Area 51. You can't walk there. At
yeah.
some point you do get stopped. But yeah, that was a funny thing that they just drove up. They're like,
Yeah.
"Hey, this used to be Area 51.
Um,
let's just pop in through the fence."
all the Vegas stuff was in the trailer. So
All
like
of it.
all of it was there. It was boring to me. I want to read you my review that I wrote on Letterboxd for this movie. I can't believe Venom 3 had better song and dance numbers than Joker 2, but I guess that's the world we live in. Between Space Oddity and the dance scene with Mrs. Chen, like I enjoyed the musical stuff in this. I enjoyed the dance number. I enjoyed them singing Major Tom to Gun Control. Like I enjoyed all of that. It's bizarre and it's weird, but I think that was the point of it. Like we're just gonna make Venom dance, and like even
Well,
Eddie's like calling them out on like, when did you guys rehearse this? Like,
because everybody loved, everybody in Brazil loved the dance scene from Venom 2, the Venom club scene or whatever,
oh
and
yeah,
we gotta introduce that. Even if introducing it means that we've got to tell the villain where we are, it's worth it to dance with cleavage Mrs. Chin. And so, uh, you know, that was just like we've been so careful to not let Venom out up to this point. Oh, but let's do it now. And then the Venom dog shows up and everyone's surprised. It's like, no,
yeah.
that's what you said was gonna happen,
Oh shit! Like,
Yeah. Yeah.
um,
Uh yeah.
yeah. No, yeah. It's the random, like you never know what you're gonna get in these movies, and I think that's why I appreciate like the sense of humor. Like I did not expect them to be dancing to ABBA,
Mm.
which I think is why I enjoyed it because it was just out there. Um,
Mhm.
but yeah,
I guess it just didn't make sense to me that if these symbiotes are the only thing that could free Null,
mm-hmm.
granted they have to die with a host, but I would think if that was the case, you wouldn't just kill all the other symbiotes. Like, yeah, Venom might be your main target because he's got a codex, but all these other symbiotes have the potential to have a codex if they died
the
with their host, right? Is that not the logic?
No, I think the logic is the host dies separate from the symbiote, and then the symbiote comes back into the host and brings them back to life.
Okay, but either way, all these other symbiotes have the potential to have their own codex if you
Yes,
under the right circumstances.
I,
So maybe don't kill off all the other ones just to
I,
pursue the one.
I think, and this might be grasping for straws here. I think the implication is the rest of the symbiotes don't have the relationship with their hosts that Venom has with Eddie, because he only saves Eddie because they had that whole first movie of connection and growth.
Yeah.
Um, and he makes the choice to go in and save him. I think the other symbiotes are smart enough to know, like, that's how Null will get out, so we're not going to do that. Like, oh, the security guard died, but a piece of the symbiote is still there. Like, I'm not going to go back in and save him because that's putting the universe in danger. But Venom loves Eddie so much that he's like, yeah, you know what? Fuck it. Like let's just go.
Kind of seems, I mean, especially in this one, he seems like the dumb one of the group. You know,
Yeah.
he might be the big muscly one, but he's definitely the dumb one
Oh,
of
yeah.
the symbiote group.
Yeah, absolutely. So,
He's the roided dumb one.
yeah.
But yeah. Okay. And then so he dies. So he dies at the end. He dies at the end. We don't get a ending scene like we did in Venom 1 where he's secretly still alive. He's, you know, Tom Hardy goes to New York and walks the streets and
To a montage of the previous films set to Maroon 5.
right. The previous and the current film. That's one of my pet peeves. I can't stand a film that does montages of its own scenes, especially when it's mid-movie and you get a montage of scenes that you just saw, you know, like at least this one was at the end. But and then he goes to see the Statue of Liberty, which was like a thing that they were bonding over. And then that's it. And then the Knoll guy is like, I'm going to get out somehow, I guess. And then that's it. So.
No, that's not it. There was another post-credit scene.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that's
Um,
the post-credit scenes. There was a mid-credits and a post-credits.
yeah.
Both of them are not worth staying around for. I'm going to put my foot down and say they are not worth staying around for. But go ahead.
Yeah, the post-credit scene is Denny Rojas leaving Area 51 after it's destructed, like, after the battle. And then you see a broken vial of symbiote go to a cockroach. And I was like, what vial was that? I had to look it up online. That was the vial that they took at the beginning of the film when they captured him. So that's a little piece of Venom.
And I guess that's all you need.
Yeah.
Because that's all what's her name needed. So
Yeah.
you just need a piece of him.
So
And then the mid credit scene was what? What was the mid credit scene again?
it was just Null, wasn't it?
Oh yeah, it was Null.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
Um,
Cockroaches live forever, so that cockroach is gonna make his way to New York and pair with
not
Eddie
Peter
and
Parker.
He'll be right.
Right. So correct me if I'm wrong. There was a man in front of monitors that we only ever saw his back, like running things for Area 56. Did we ever figure out? Did they ever say who that was?
No.
Okay.
Why
All
is
right.
there a theory in that or something?
No, but I was like, "Why? What is this?" And then I'm looking at the cast list, and Reed Scott, who played Dr. Dan Lewis, Annie's boyfriend in the first two films, is listed, but he wasn't in the movie. I'm like, was that him? Like,
Yeah. No, I didn't think so.
so like
We
there's
last saw him at the church in the second
Yeah.
film. Yeah.
So they have been teasing in the press for this that Null is like, this is just the start of Null.
Right.
Do you think they're setting up like a Sinister Six to fight Null in the Sony universe, like bringing in Venom and Kraven and Morbius and
I mean, that's what I was wondering at the beginning of our podcast here. I if that's the case, it's weak sauce.
Yeah.
And also, how would he get out now that Venom is gone or is temporarily away from his host? If this Codex thing is the only thing that can get him out, don't tell me that there's another way that he can get out, because that doesn't make any sense. And under our logic, none of the other symbiotes that died was part of their host long enough to form a thing.
yeah.
So none of them are codexes. So I don't know. I don't know. And then I wouldn't think so. And if they did, none of them, they would all die because these dogs are like super power. Like the majority of the film was Venom getting his ass kicked by one dog, and
Yeah.
then multiple symbiotes dying from one dog, and then a couple other dogs came in and almost won the day. So multiple dogs versus Craven. I'm sorry, Craven, you're dying. You're not gonna
Yeah.
survive. That's great. You can take out a tiger in Africa, and you can take out some villains in a Russian gulag prison, but you're not gonna survive whatever this is. A
Yeah.
Venom dog. Uh, and then who would the other ones be? We're not getting another Morbius film. If they're smart, they won't touch Madam Web with a 20-foot pole. Um, you know, who else are we getting? And do we really need all those films? And is Sony gonna last that long? Because, I mean, I don't know. Post Craven, is there anything else that's confirmed coming from Sony other than Spider-Man 4?
I don't think so.
I don't think so either. I mean,
There were
it's been a while.
there
They used to
there
have all these other plans.
yeah. Let's look. Sony, Marvel. Let's see. So the only one that's confirmed is Craven the Hunter.
Yeah.
There are a bunch that are listed, but nothing that's like in production. We do have the Spider-Man television series, Spider-Man Noir, starring Nicolas Cage.
Yeah, and they did release some set photos from that this week, which look good. But that's a Spider Verse thing. So I mean, post Craven, I wonder if they're going for a reset here, like a quiet reset, or not, because you would think they'd have something else in the works if Craven is coming out this year.
Yeah,
Is the Sony verse dying in 2024 or what?
it might be. It also like just I'm wondering if the powers that be at Marvel have been making deals with Sony, knowing that they're. I think the MCU is heading for a reset, so I'm wondering if they're going to try to get everything back under the one roof. Like if,
Mm.
and Sony's just like, you know what, we're gonna take your money because they're gonna have to pay for that. Like if they want to do that, it's going to cost them
Oh yeah.
billions of dollars.
Yes.
But I think maybe that's the point where
Maybe they're just smarter than DC and Warner Brothers, where they don't announce their reset multiple years in advance,
yeah,
and maybe they're just like, guess what? We're gonna do it all behind the scenes, because honestly, this is the first time in a long time that I haven't heard of more Spider-Man properties in the works or Spider-Man adjacent Sony properties in the works. I was shocked actually to think, oh, there's not anything that's post Craven that has been officially announced
yeah.
in terms of these Spider-Man adjacent movies. So, um, yeah, I what would you now that we've talked to death about Venom 3, we've given our ratings. I wasn't
Yes.
I didn't walk out as irritated and as disappointed in Joker as I did in Joker, but I held Joker to a higher standard. But
Yeah.
now that you've seen Venom 3 and the Venom trilogy is done, where would you like if you could say, Sony, this is what I want you to take the character? Would you want an extension of this? Would you want a reset? Would you want to go back to the villain side of things? Would you want a fourth Eddie Tom Hardy renaissance with Venom? What would you want Sony to do with this?
Oh man. So what I would love to see if they're going to continue the story from here is have that little bit of symbiote on the cockroach travel to New York because that's its goal. Like that's all it knows. Like I need to get to New York. Doesn't remember Eddie. Just knows New York, has that connection to like the the symbiote hive mind that they teased at the end of Venom 2 when he saw Peter Parker. Have it get to New York. You have Eddie Brock working at the Daily Bugle. And the symbiote connects with Peter Parker. Like, have a Peter Parker there where you get the black suited Spider-Man and like have him be the photographer for like Eddie Brock, and then like go that way. Like get it back into Spider-Man and Venom. Or if you can't get Spider-Man, let's do Agent Venom with Flash Thompson. Like maybe it meets back up with Eddie and they do a thing for a while, but then Flash Thompson comes in and they're like, okay, we're gonna do Agent Venom. Like, he needs you to survive. Like, help him. Instead of the death sacrifice, like, hey, they need you more than I do. Like, have him move on that way.
Yeah, I mean, I think it would, because then they'd have to do the whole amnesia thing, like, oh, I don't
Yeah.
remember, and
Or, I mean, if you do the Agent Venom thing, you don't need to do the amnesia thing.
right, you wouldn't have to.
Like,
but then why wouldn't if he's so connected to Eddie that they form a codex? Why wouldn't he just do anything but get back to Eddie?
Yeah.
I really don't like the whole just this little dime's worth of symbiote can make you into Venom. That doesn't make sense to me.
I mean, it was a drop of blood that made Carnage into Carnage. So,
yeah, that's right. And I didn't like that either. But meanwhile, all the other symbiotes have got the full blob,
Yeah.
and all you need is a little bit. But yeah, I honestly hope that they just reset it. Give it some time. Reset it. I mean, it looks so good. They got the visuals down. I'll give them that. They got the visuals of Venom down. But imagine if they just tweaked it a little bit and then brought it back into a horror villain setting. I would love that. I would love that. And maybe and you call me old or whatever, and I grew up on Venom being a bad guy. Maybe that would be cool for these people that grew up on Venom being a good guy to be like, oh shit, but what if he was a villain?
Yeah.
What if he turned bad? What if he was a force to be reckoned with, and he wasn't, fucking stupid all the time, but he was just mean and villainous.
Yeah.
That would be a force to be. Well, that would be cool. Let's explore that angle. No one's thought of that before. What
Yeah.
if they went and did that? So, I wouldn't. I don't know, man. I don't. At the end of this, I wasn't like, God, I hope we get a Noel movie.
Yeah.
I don't think a Noel movie was earned.
So if Noel is a villain, like they tease him to be, like, I think he's a multiversal threat. So maybe he's
that's
coming
definitely
in.
what they were
Yeah.
teasing.
So maybe we just leave the Sony universe behind. You have a little bit of the symbiote in the MCU. Have that go find Peter Parker. And maybe that's what Spider-Man 4 is going to be.
Because he's a force to be reckoned with in the comics. What was the main comic thing that he was in? It was Web of Venom, or no, King in Black. That was his big story, and it. I mean, it involved the X-Men. It involved Captain America. It involved Hulk and Iron Man. It involved everybody. So I never read it, but I remember looking at it, and I remember Noel's face was kind of Joker-esque. I do not ever see Disney allowing Sony to bring a villain that affects their characters. I don't allow anything. I don't allow them seeing anything starting in a Sony film and then MCU bending to accommodate.
Yeah, I don't either.
And the last couple times that we've seen Sony try to force the reverse, bring in Keaton's Vulture or something like that, or even their own, like Morbius had the Venom joke in the trailer, and then that wasn't in the movie. You know, it's like
Yeah.
they can't. They throw things at the wall at the Sony, and then they hope it'll stick. But in terms of the MCU, it usually doesn't. You know, MCU's just
Yeah.
like no.
Even
You know.
even this like even beyond the Venom line in the Morbius trailer, like they had that shot of Morbius walking by a Spider-Man graffiti thing,
Yep, that
and
wasn't in there.
yeah, um,
I just don't see it happening. And even with Deadpool, I have seen some people like, well, Deadpool did a lot of stuff. You know, why can't Sony? Well, it's a different relationship. You
yeah,
know, expect Kevin Feige has a history with Fox, and Fox has done its own thing, and then it quietly died. Well, it didn't quietly die, but it died. But it never tried to like force its hand
me.
over rights issues. You know.
Meanwhile, like Kevin Feige gave notes on Amazing Spider-Man 2 on things that were going to be problematic, and they
Yeah.
ignored them. And then they came to the MCU and like, oh hey, can we can we play with you guys now because this didn't work.
Hmm.
Um, because if you look at the
We're
notes he gave, because that's what that all leaked in that Sony hack. Like it
Yeah, I
was
remember.
everything that was wrong with that movie. He called them on. Um,
And then
so
they came together for Civil War, and that feels like so long ago
it
when they
does.
announced Civil War, and everybody was like, "Holy shit, it's a new day," you know. And Spider-Man's coming to the MCU, and
That was almost 10 years ago.
it's crazy. And the Spider-Man presence in the MCU has been so they've been meticulous about what happens and where they go and how much supervision Sony has with Marvel that I do not see a villain that originated in a Sony movie crossing over to the MCU. I
Yeah,
don't see it happening.
I don't.
So,
I don't either.
and I
But at the
don't see this Venom
but at the
happening.
but at the same time, like the way they're teasing Spider-Man 4, um, is that it's a story that they've never done before. Like it's something big. And there have been rumors about Marvel wanting to do a street level story and then Sony wanting to do another multiverse story. So, and the latest rumor I heard was that Sony won that battle. So it's going to be another grand Spider-Verse story.
Do we
Um,
really need that?
no,
I,
we
I thought
don't.
the I thought the Deadpool speech was speaking for all of us. Like,
Yes.
do we need more
As
multiverse, guys?
as much as I love Toby and Andrew, like
Mhm.
it would be great to see them again, but save that for Secret Wars. Make Secret Wars special when you bring everyone back in. We don't need anything else before that. So,
Yeah, yeah. Secret Wars would be fun, and that'd be great. But it would only be great if we're not constantly hit over the head with that stuff beforehand. You know,
yeah.
there needs to be some space. I one more thing I want to ask you because we're going a little long, but Tom Holland is has now been said to have some creative control over Spider-Man going forward.
Yes.
Not the first time we've seen this. We've seen other actors uh, have similar permissions or scale or ownership of their role with their character going forward. What do you think of that? Do you think that's a good thing? Do you think that's a bad thing? What do you think of the concept in general of an actor having creative control over a character
I
uh, that they've just been playing?
I control the word control worries me.
Hmm.
Creative feedback and input doesn't scare me as much because he works so closely with Robert Downey Jr. on Civil War and Homecoming and then Infinity War. Like I feel like he learned a lot from him. So and he's like the other one who had a lot of like input with like Tony Stark. So I'm really hoping that it'll help the character because Sony, like, we have a whole list of films that Sony doesn't know what they're doing. Um,
Hmm.
and I think if you can get Kevin Feige and Tom Holland on the same page and have a story that makes sense going forward with a bunch of creative input that benefits the character and benefits the story, I don't think it's a bad thing. I think when you give him control of it, that's that's worrying. But input, I'm okay with, because like if the story is a multiverse thing and they pull him into the MCU or into the Sony universe from the MCU, like him having creative control is like, oh, but Zendaya needs to be in here because she's my girlfriend. Like that's a little bit weird. But if the story warrants it, like warrants having her there, like go for it. But like if it's just like, oh, but I want to make sure that she's in this, like that's a little concerning. But I want to say that
I mean, that's. Go ahead.
Yeah, I want to hope that he got the right lessons from Robert Downey Jr. and is able to use it. With great power comes great responsibility, and I don't.
Yeah,
think
there you go.
I don't think he'll take it lightly.
It's just the this Zendaya thing. I mean, that's more casting control than create.
Yeah.
When I think of creating control, I think of where are we taking the character, what stories are we going to tell, and he might be a huge Spider-Man fanatic for all I know, but for all I know, he's the actor that plays Spider-Man, and he does it well. But I don't expect him to know all the stories, and it's not a dig. It's really not. He might be a storyteller, but I don't expect actors to be story. This is why when we have a writer's strike, it affects things, and this was a writer's strike affected film. Venom 3.
Yeah.
It was. And this is why when we have writer strikes, we don't get amazing movies out of it, because actors are actors and directors are directors and writers are writers. And I'm not saying they can't cross over and be both, but you can't necessarily expect them to cross over and be both just because they've acted in previous films. So when they say that he has creative control, I don't know that it's to the degree that they're teasing that he does, but it's just like, okay, but, I'm not necessarily like, oh, great, because he's a great Spider-Man. I don't think that necessarily transfers into, oh, but he can tell the best stories, know. So I don't know what that means, and I don't know how to feel about that. I have heard the multiverse rumors, and I'm like, just don't, man. Just don't. Let that die, man. I mean, and it's crazy because when we first heard about multiverse, both me and you were like, hell yeah, let's go. And it's been beat into the ground by just disappointment and disappointment, and I'm done with it, man. Like, I'm done with it.
I'm not done with it. Like, I'm enjoying what, like, Deadpool was a nice breath of fresh air. But I'm ready for a break from it for a bit, because I don't think we're going to get more multiverse stuff until Secret Wars. I mean, a little bit with Fantastic Four, because that's in a whole nother universe, but
it's crazy to me that the most exciting thing I have with Marvel right now is Thunderbolts and not Secret Wars. Like, I want more things in between the next multiverse film. I don't want let's do it again, I want some space.
I'm excited for everything they have coming out next year, and I think the only multiverse adjacent thing is Fantastic Four, unless like there's some element to Thunderbolts and Captain America that we don't know about yet.
Right.
But no,
it just seems like a story crux, like a crutch lately, and
it does.
We can't all be No Way Home, so let's not try to be. Let's not try to be.
Wait, just save it until Secret Wars. Make Secret Wars special and bring everyone into that. But we got Doomsday before that, so we'll see what happens. But
we got Doomsday before that. What?
Yeah, Avengers Doomsday is before Secret Wars.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah.
What is that going to be about? Yeah,
it's no just idea.
It is insane. The whole you live long enough to see yourself become a villain or whatever. The
either die a hero or live long enough to see yourself become the villain.
And I remember the days of these long out phase reveals from Marvel, and how amazing they were. And yeah, there might be a change here and there, like with Serpent Society and stuff like that. But for the most part, they were legit. And now you're just like, Man, I don't know what's coming. And yeah, they've announced Doomsday and they've announced Secret Wars, but is that really what they are? And
Yeah,
what does Doomsday even mean? And what,
and
like,
they announced Armor Wars and Blade, and both of
I
those
know.
are like nowhere to be seen.
Yeah, now
Um,
you can. It's almost a hard, it's an easy bet that half the stuff they announce, if it's more than a year out, and that ain't happening.
yeah,
Like
yeah.
I don't see that happening.
Um,
They're just throwing things at the panel and announcing shit to announce shit. But and they're not telegraphing things. When they announced Infinity War Parts 1 and Part 2 before they changed it to Endgame, it was telegraphed and you were like, I see the stepping stones of where we're going. Do you have any idea what Doomsday is about? I don't.
no,
And I
no.
don't see any stepping stones leading towards that,
I mean,
I don't.
the only thing I see leading towards that is Fantastic Four.
Yeah, the
So
last stepping stone we had was what's his face? That's no longer in the MCU
Kang,
anymore. Kang. Yeah, I
yeah,
mean, they tried to replicate Thanos, and then life blew up in their face, and then they're like, it just seems like they haven't recovered from that yet.
yeah,
Because I don't care. You can announce the Russo brothers are coming back all you want, but if you don't say what the movie is, and after you fumbled so much stuff on Disney Plus and I can't even
yeah.
remember the name of the Samuel L. Jackson show, but it's
Secret
just
Invasion, yeah,
it's Secret Invasion. God, I mean, fumble stuff like that. I don't know, man. I don't know.
yeah.
I
It's
we need a reset. I
we
feel like
we
we need a reset.
well, we'll be
Not
talking
a
about
day one reset,
yeah,
but
no,
yeah.
we will be talking very soon about MCU related stuff because Agatha All Along is ending out its season this week on
Yeah.
Halloween. So we'll probably be recording at some point next weekend to talk about that. So
When isn't Penguin ending too?
Penguin's ending soon too. I need to get caught up on that. But yeah,
I'm the reverse. I need to get caught up on Agatha, but I've been
yeah,
watching Penguin all day.
yeah,
Uh, we should do a versus because they're kind of versus. The
yeah,
Marvel show versus the Disney show, or the Disney show, the Marvel show versus the DC show episode.
yeah. We should.
I think Penguin is an example of, oh, you can have a story around a villain and they could still be a villain. They could be, they could be the,
Yeah.
the person that you follow in the show, but they could still be a villain. So
Let's
um,
see. When's the last episode of Penguin? November. So we
it's
got
got
November 10th. So we get yeah. So we've got a few weeks until that ends. But
okay.
yeah,
Well, maybe we could wait till that ends or not. It's up to you. But I'd be interested to compare the shows.
I
Maybe
would
or
too.
maybe not. Maybe they're not worthy of a comparison of each other. They just happen to come out at
Yeah,
the same time.
yeah. I mean, I think our pop culture nerd drought has ended because we've got those two things coming out. We've got Craven in December.
We got a lot of stuff in
Yeah,
2025. We're,
yeah,
we're saying all this about Marvel, but Marvel has taken a break.
yeah,
They've had stuff that have been coming out, but they did take a break this year, and 2025 is their kind of return. So
yeah.
there is a lot of stuff coming, and we just need to get there. So
Oh yeah,
yeah,
we're getting there. So, uh, and you can join us on our journey.
that's right.
Because we'll be back talking about Agatha All Along and Penguin here in the near future. Until then, make sure to follow Victims and Villains on Facebook and Instagram, and subscribe to our YouTube channel where you can watch this episode and see our beautiful faces. But until next time, for Brilliant but Lazy, I'm Alan.
I'm Josh.
In the words of Dr. Fraser Crane, as Venom, wishing you